Hey everybody, it's Mike here from The Art of Guitar. I'm back with another lesson. It's been a little while since I've actually done one of these formal sit-down lessons. At least it seems like it's been a while. I've been doing a lot of original song stuff and a lot of composing and everything, so I've been pretty busy. But it feels good to do this again because I've been wanting to do this video for a long time. I like to take a song that a lot of bands play and maybe take for granted and really get down to some details that I think a lot of bands miss, including the bands that I've played with and currently play with actually. If you know this series, you know that I choose songs like Keep Your Hands to Yourself by Georgia Satellites or, Brown Eyed Girl. This time I'm doing Sweet Home Alabama. Another one of those eye rollers like, oh man, we've heard that song a billion times. And that's the exact reason why I love this series, because even though you've heard it a million times, the sad part is a lot of bands might be like, well, it's just Sweet Home Alabama. Let's just jam it. It's 3 chords. We could take up some time. And I think we're doing a disservice to Skynyrd when we do that, because that band actually composes their songs very intricately. If you really get into the details of what they're doing, it's pretty amazing. Of course, we have to talk about that legendary intro. A lot of people spend a lot of time getting this down, and I could tell because when I listen to cover bands play it, the intro is usually pretty good. I'll average it out of how I hear it most of the time. So that's usually pretty passable. One thing I hear a lot though, a lot of people use too much gain. This is a common theme for a lot of my videos, but it's mostly because I used to do that all the time. So if I crank up my volume all the way up to get the full sound of the amp, see, it's a little too noisy. So if that's the case, back off on your volume a little bit to clean it up. Use those palm mutes, very important. Then there's up. That usually gets people. There's a little bit of an extra note in there. So. And when you do that last downstroke, include the third interval. That gets missed a lot, actually. A little bit tricky, but... There's a secondary lead part that has to come in when the drums come in, and I hear this missed quite a bit. And it goes like this. When it's in the mix, it sounds so great. So if you have another lead guitar player in your band, maybe you don't have 3 guitar players like Skynyrd, but if you have another guitar player that's able to do that, make sure they throw that in at the right time because it makes all the difference in my opinion. So on the drums, something that I notice is a lot of drummers like to just do the We Will Rock You beat, which is basically... And that works totally fine. But if you listen real carefully, you could hear that there's a double kick in strategic places. So when the beat finally does kick in, it sounds more like this. So get those hiccup kicks in there and it's going to grab the groove in a really cool way. We already talked about the secondary lead part in the intro, but during the verses, there's a part that seems to be universally missed by almost every cover band. I did hear some play it though, which was awesome. But if the other guitar player isn't sure what to do, I'm noticing a lot of them just strum the chords, almost like an acoustic player would do. But if you're the other electric player, try this move instead. Now that I play that, doesn't it sound very familiar that that's actually in the song quite a bit? And that goes right back to the D nicely. Also, you have to make sure that you're doing a side stick during the verses. A lot of drummers elect to just hit the snare, and it doesn't bring the song down in dynamics the way it's supposed to. So if you're playing the verse like this, see, it just sounds like a regular beat, but if you go to the side stick, it's got a whole nother feel to it. Singing songs about the Southland. You might also notice that I'm really cranking on the hi-hat when I do the open. And by the way, that is in strategic places as well. So really figure out where that is in the song, because if it's not there, it feels so empty. But I'm not just lifting it up like I'm barely hitting it. I'm cranking it, basically. I'm using the side of the stick and really just opening it up like that. Not a nice little tap, but a big hit. So if you're doing this, it's just not enough. So give it a good whack. Now I'm going to switch to the bass really quick. It's fun doing the drums, bass, and guitar parts for this. I'm not doing the piano or the vocal. I'm not going to focus on those much today because a lot of bands do those parts pretty well. So I'm only going to focus on the parts that I really see as glaring issues with a lot of bands. I'm going to use a more gnarly tone than I normally would for this song, only so you could hear it better through your speakers. So it's going to be like a... It's going to have a little bit of an edge to it. I see a lot of bass players kick right into the song. They do something like... right when the band kicks in. But if you listen to the song, it's weird. The bass is only going like this in the very beginning. Isn't that kind of surprising? You would think once the drums kick in, it would be held out more, but no, it's choppy like that. So a lot of just dead space, which is great. Then surprisingly, when the song kind of cools down and the drummer goes to that side stick, you're supposed to let the notes ring out more on the bass. So this. On the next section, the bass does more than what I see a lot of people do. I see a lot of bass players stick with the D, C, G, the jam band idea where you're just playing 3 chords. But there's a lot going on, and it interlocks with the riff of the guitar. So it's more like this. It's super fun to play that part. I love doing the slide down to the G like that. It just feels like a lead guitar part. Speaking of leads, the bass has to follow the guitar going into the chorus, and it's a pretty cool lick. It goes like this. I rarely see bass players follow that part. I think I've seen one person play it up here. It's really awkward if you do it there. If you do it here at the 5th position, it's actually pretty playable because it's all in this little box shape, and you do some pull-offs, you can make it fancy. And you should be able to get that up to speed. Now this part blows my mind that almost every cover I watch, I notice the drummer does this. And by the way, I did this too back in the day. So right when the chorus comes in, there's a drum fill. And a lot of drummers crash on the 1. So they'll do something like... But if you really listen to it, it's more of like a Lars Ulrich thing where you hit on the 2 and right when they say sweet, and that's really important. So you do the fill, like that, and then it's and until I caught that, I wasn't even aware that that was such a big deal. And now when I listen to other people play it, it bothers me so much when I hear the crash on the 1 versus the 2. I neglected to play this next part for years before I finally really listened and realized they're doing this really great power chord. When you can add the 6th interval? Total old school rock and blues, right? Well, going like this... with that syncopated up hit on the C is so crucial. Once it's there, the song just has a different attitude on that part. Instead of, if one guitar is going to be doing this, more like that. But the other guitarist gets to beef it up by doing these huge power chords. So you have to give your second guitar player grief if they're not doing that, only because it's so crucial. And once the whole band is grooving on that and you all hit that C together, it's going to be a whole different world. When you come out of the first chorus, the bass has to play F-E-D, Fed. The reason that can be a little bit confusing is because very soon after that, during the verse, you have to do these 3 big hits. And the first note is F again, but it's not F-E-D this time, it's F-C-D. Isn't that strange? So the first time, That goes into the first little guitar solo. Then the verse kicks in, the second verse, and now you have to go like this. I used to improvise over that first short little guitar solo, but I think we have to honor this one because it's so signature, if you will. So the whole... that part's important because the whole band is hitting with you on that part. I love getting a little squeal right there. That is not an easy lick. I'm not sure I'm doing it exactly like he does it, but that's how I've learned to do it over the years. It's a lot of fun. I would say the second, the longer guitar solo and the one at the very end, if you don't have a piano player, go crazy, just do whatever. But make sure you get at least one signature solo in there. I recommend it being this first short one. Less work because it's short, I guess. After the second chorus, there is a long guitar solo. Right before it, though, you're supposed to have, the vocalist goes Alabama, real choppy like that. So the snare has to follow that. Other instruments do as well, but that's all it really is on the drums. But it has to be there because it throws you into the next part, which is the guitar solo. So you're going like this, right? Listen for it. It's there, and then it's also in the next solo where the piano solo goes off. It's there as well. Just a little bit different, but this is the idea of it. Speaking of that longer solo section, it's the first time you get to go to the ride cymbal. I've watched and I've seen a lot of drummers do the ride cymbal in all parts of the song. But really, it's just down there for the guitar solos, the long ones. So the beat goes like this. It changes a little bit. Halfway through the solo, the drums build by hitting crashes like this. So throw those in because that tells the band that the next part's coming up. And then at the end, it comes back again, signifying the end of the song, but the song fades out on the album. But live, it's a great time to just go back into another verse if the crowd's rocking. It's a really cool thing to just do it again and give the band a chance to just go off towards the end. It's a lot of fun. Here's something I never noticed either. Right before the first long solo, when they go Alabama, the bass has to go F, G, F, G, F really fast. It's this really weird... Isn't that strange? If you listen to the isolated track, you can hear it. The bass changes during the long solos. A lot of stuff happens during those. The ride cymbal starts, the kick drum changes, and the bass has to fill in some space. So it locks into the kick drum if you go like this. That's the bass line during those long solos. It's pretty sweet, isn't it? So it's reminiscent of something you did earlier, but then you go to the C and walk up. Then jump way over here. It's funny because you end on the D, then you go right back to the D. I had to do a lot of research for this very last tip. It's the strange natural harmonic thing that happens right before one of the verses. And it's actually really difficult to play. I found a way around it, but here's what I hear on the album. I don't have my trem bar, but you're supposed to do a little bit of a trem bar dip on that last harmonic. So those are the notes. I kind of did it with neck diving. That's kind of cool. Not the best thing for the guitar, I don't think, but... Okay, so when you're doing that, it's really hard to go fast because you're supposed to go do-do-do-do. It's supposed to be just instant, which I find almost impossible. I guess you could do that. You could just do a big stretch. When I watch Skinner doing it in modern times, I'm noticing that they kind of just... They kind of do that. So they change it up a little bit. That's nice because at the end you could just lay your finger across to hit those last two harmonics. Much more playable. But I was messing with it today and I realized you could also go like this if you want to. You could play the first note here So the first harmonic right here. Then dip down to the 6th string, 3rd fret. See, it still gives you that B note. Isn't that cool? Then you can lay across and do what the modern version of Skynyrd does. Would take a lot of practice, but it's a lot easier in my opinion than going. Jumping up to that B is just crazy. All right, so those are my tips to play a better version of Sweet Home Alabama. I like to say that, obviously you don't have to do everything perfect, but it really makes the song fun when you get those little details in there. And to me, it honors the band and the initial recording and composition of this masterpiece, I would call it. So it'd be really cool if a band that right now thinks of this song as like a 3-chord jam tune, if they threw in these details and saw the difference and heard and felt the difference. I would love to know in the comments section what that was like. All right, so thank you everyone for watching. I got a couple concert reviews coming up. Going to see Iron Maiden pretty soon, so that should be pretty cool. I'm excited. All right, we'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.